Okay, namaskar. So I know today you'll be having some great expectation, great expectations that we are going to discuss dhyan. Now dhyan is so important. Everybody keeps saying, I'm meditating, my dhyan, this, that. The problem is to say in one sentence. Let me again go back to the Yoga Sutras. What do they define? Because that is the authority. So we will go from there. Now, as I said, even though it occurs in the Ashtangas, the 8 Angas, and Sadhana Pada is supposed to be the 8 Angas, but actually it stops at Pratyahara, Sadhana Pada. And it's very peculiar because Patanjali keeps jumping chapters. So when you come to Dharana Dhyana, which is what we're dealing with, we dealt with Dharana last time, it's in the Vibhuti Pada, next chapter, which means chapter of Vibhutis, meaning chapter of development of the mind, expansion of the mind, siddhis of the mind, and so on. So the first part, last time when we discussed dharana, I gave you the definition from Yoga Sutras. Desha bandhas chittasya dharana, they said. I explained it to you. Desha means place. Bandhas means holding. Chittasya, mind. And dharana, this is called dharana. Some people translate it as concentration. I don't think dharana is. I think it should be translated as one pointed attention, so that the mind is able to remain bound in one place. Desha. Desha is not state but place. So a state and a country is called desha because it is a place. So that is the root meaning of it. So that is dharana. I explained yesterday. Last time, how to keep your mind here. Different kinds of dharana, external, internal. How to keep your mind in one place. Now, there is one problem here, which is when you go to the next step, which is the main part, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. From dharana leading into dhyana and samadhi. The difficulty is that very few people can try hard and do dharana, but even though people say they meditate, very few people can actually do dhyana. I'm going to explain that. First, let's see the definition in the Vibhuti-pada, second sutra. After Desha bandhas chittasya dharana, holding of the mind together in one place is called dharana. The next is dhyana. So how is dhyana defined? Tatra pratyaya ekatanata dhyanam. Tatra, there, pratyaya, intention, eka, one, tanata, extending, stretching, is called dhyana. If you translate it, it's like extension, lengthening of the intention to meditate of dharana is called dhyana. It can be two things. Either deliberately trying to extend the dharana, or when the dharana becomes perfect, it extends itself into dhyana. So most people are only trying to do dharana. Really, they're not doing dhyana because dhyana needs the mind to remain in that state of dharana for a length of time, which is almost impossible, very difficult. So, why? Because most of us read meditation, do meditation, immediately start. Yoga Sutras, Patanjali says that it has to come step by step with yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara. Then only the dhyana will come. And when dhyana comes, then only the samadhi will come. We won't discuss samadhi today, next. So, what I'm trying to say is, if you have followed the yama niyamas properly, and if you have learned pranayama properly, and you practiced for some time, and you learn pratyahara, then it is possible to do dharana. If then that dharana automatically stretches itself into dhyana. So what is important? Yama, niyama, asana. What are yama, niyamas? You can't simply say, I live as I like and I want to do long. It doesn't work. You have to change your way of life, mode of existence. You have to control your food, you have to control your activities. These are called yama, niyamas. And then asanas, find out a posture where you can sit for, imagine somebody trying to sit in Padmasana without any practice of asanas and trying to do that. Is it possible? Pain here, pain there, in 2 minutes you are out. So, you have to stabilize your asana. What does Patanjali define asana? Sthira sukha, sthira sukham, asanam. That posture in which you get sukha for a length of time is called an asana. So, what I am trying to say, if dharana has to stretch into what is called dhyana, which is what we usually mean by meditation, then these first steps have to be perfectly, as much as possible, practiced and followed before it becomes successful. Don't think that you can live as you like and then sit down and do dharana. Dharana may be possible for a few minutes, but it cannot stretch into dhyana. This is the problem. That is the problem. So you need to go back and look at yama niyamas. Plus, even though sadhana pada and samadhi pada, which are the first chapter, describe yama niyamas come only in the sadhana. Why is it that Patanjali starts the Yoga Sutras with samadhi pada instead of going directly to sadhana pada? Because he is trying to tell us what we are trying to attain. What are we trying to achieve? So, what we are trying to achieve is a state of mind which is calm, tranquil, free of distortions, important distortions. And such a mind then reflects a Purusha. In fact, when a mind is in its completely sattvic mode, there is a very small hairbreadth kind of difference between the Purusha and that sattvic mind. So this is the whole aim. That's why they have started with Samadhi Pada and said Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. This is what we are trying to do. Now, this is also possible when you read the Samadhi Pada, when you find out that the cause, many places mentioned, the cause for the distraction of the mind, which is what we are trying to get over through dhyana, dharana and dhyana, is the complete misunderstanding of thinking what is real to be unreal and what is unreal to be real. We think that the mind is real. Actually, it is only the Purusha that is real. We think the outside world is real and the inside world is real and the Purusha is unreal. We don't know whether it exists, where is it? So therefore, this attitude of mind is called ignorance, avidya. Changing this avidya is the theoretical step required first. It's also a mental exercise required to change the step, to understand the fact that what we think is real is actually not real, but what we think is unreal, we don't know, that may be real. Maybe. So this changing of ignorance, how to change? Through discrimination. All this is mentioned. You come to dhyana where? In the last chapter in Kaivalya, you come to dhyana. Before that, there are many chapters. So, to actually be able to extend your dharana into dhyana, you should have a good understanding of this concept. And you should be also have the discrimination developed through practice, of course, thinking, to understand that what you think is real is not the real. There is something other than what you think is real. This is the whole thing why it has come this way and then come to dharana dhyana, because sadhana pada is the practical. You cannot do the practicals unless and until you have a base on which you can stand. This is what I keep telling people. Yeah, you can do asanas, that's fine. You can develop your body, you can keep it healthy, all that is fine. But if that dharana has to extend into dhyana, actually dharana is not different from dhyana. Dhyana is the extension of that, keeping the mind in one place for a length of time. This is dhyana. There is no other difference between dharana and dhyana. So, of course, later on in this stage, there is no person who meditates or the thing meditated upon. There is only samadhi. We will come to that later. So, this has to be understood. So, let me go back. If you really want to do dhyana, let me go back to this once again, to the samadhi pada, and work on this thing about what is real and what isn't real. See, there was a paper lying here on the table. Can you get me that printout? I just got it from experiments being done at, not that the printout, in Johns Hopkins University. It has a beautiful title. This is recent, 2 days ago. It's not anything which is old. Philosophy lab test finds that objective vision is impossible. Johns Hopkins University researchers who study the mind and brain used methods from cognitive science to test a long-standing philosophical question: can people see the world objectively? This is what Vedanta is talking about. This is what Patanjali is talking about. It's a question about the influence of one's own mind, one's own perspective on perception. Alexander Pope said this beautifully in his poem. He said, the difference is as great between the optic seeing as the object seen. So, when you understand this fact, that what you see may not be real, then only you start looking for then what is real. Objects exist, no question. But they exist in different forms and different ways for different people and different creatures depending upon their instruments of perception. So what we get is not the object. We are getting only an image of the object projected into our mind by our sense organs, which are our telescopes, our microscopes, our instruments of perception. If they change, then you may see it as something else. So what is the real shape? So this is what the theory is about. That the shape and the form and what you see is not important. The only importance here is that it exists. Existence is important. Not what you think it is, but what it actually is, which we don't know really. So when this can be seen and found only when the mind becomes absolutely clear, no distractions, no vrittis in the chitta, absolutely clear, and it realizes that this mad rush and the mad search we are looking for is actually in something that really is projected by our senses, and it does not really exist as it is. The only existence is me who is seeing it. So this attitude has to be understood. Now when this is understood, then the ignorance is destroyed slowly. When the ignorance is destroyed, you don't substitute with another idea you manufacture out of ignorance saying this is the reality. You leave it there. Destroy the ignorance and be blind, be quiet. And then you will begin to see the reality. So all this work has to be gone into before dharana can be stretched into dhyana. You cannot artificially stretch it. If you try, you will either fall asleep or you will go into an unconscious state, which is not dhyana. Many people I know, they sit down into dharana, maybe inside here or here, and then they fall into some kind of they think they are going into dhyana and samadhi, but actually they are going into deep sleep. In fact, I know a group of people who sit and start meditating. They go deeper and seriously. And they are told that this is the right thing to do, so they do it. Especially after 2 drinks, what do you expect? So, this is something that you have to note. That unless the background, the foundation work is done, dharana cannot be stretched into dhyana. Okay, having said that, is it possible that while we consider all this and we are trying to work on it, is there some way by which we can stretch the dharana practically for a little more time so that it goes into dhyana. Dhyana, the word dhyo comes from dhyana. The Gayatri, when it says dhyo yona prachodayat, when it says Tatsavitarvarenyam bhargo devasya dhimahi dhimahi, the dhimahi is meditate upon. It's from the root dhyana, dhi. So, when we want to do this, the reason why we are not able to stretch our dharana into dhyana, not because of the lack of technique, no technique can do it. The reason is that we are really not interested in getting rid of ignorance. If that can happen, then dhyana will happen. Plus, you may be meditating on what you call doing dharana on an idea which is given to you from a book or by the guru or projected and so on, but you're seriously not interested in it. You're doing it like a practice. And then after 10 minutes you want to get up and go and do it. Suppose you're actually seriously interested in finding the truth, going beyond all appearances and deceptions, then in that attitude of mind, you will be able to lengthen your dharana. How? Suppose I am seriously interested in music. I don't have to say I am doing dharana on music. When I am fixing my attention on music completely, then it is dharana. When I am fully absorbed in it, it is dhyana. I am so absorbed that I forget my existence, I am reached samadhi. But what is the basis? I am seriously interested in it. Not as a technique. I am interested. So that interest develops only when you begin to see the hollowness of what you think is real, and through discrimination realize that the reality is different. Then that ignorance is broken. Then it becomes effortless to sit in dhyana. You don't have to do it, just sit and it's there. Dhyana has already come. You don't even have to deliberately do some kind of dharana. Okay. So therefore, if you want to develop your capacity to dhyana, knowing all this, keeping this in the background, saying, yeah, I'm working on that, but I also need, okay. What you need to do is, in your dharana, try to fix your attention on something that will keep your interest sustained. One is music. The other is anything that you enjoy doing. Even if you go walking and go to the seashore and sit and watch the waves, you're not deliberately trying to do dharana, but you're automatically going into this thing called dhyana, watching the waves. Or you go into the forest and there's a cool breeze blowing, you're just sitting there doing nothing. You don't want, you see, the problem is, whenever we come in contact with anything in this world, we immediately have our own self-centered interest in it, which prevents us from actually seeing it as it is. I know people who go walking in the forest, all the time their mind is working on how to get a contract by which you can cut timber from these huge trees which are standing. Do you see the trees, or do you see the money in your bank account when you sell the trees? So that kind of profit motive, if it goes, then from dharana, you can easily slip into dhyana. So when your mind is open, you're looking out, it's beautiful. Or there is a beautiful chanting of a mantra going on and you want to listen to it. Now that dharana becomes almost effortless. And effortless dharana is automatically dhyana. I hope you grasp what I'm trying to say. Do your dharana internally, externally, chakras, wherever you want to do, or something beautiful before you which you really love to. And also with the understanding that this is going to take you out of the illusion which you are in, into reality. It's convince your brain, man, this is your only way. And if you do that, then automatically your dharana will go on into dhyana. There will be no distractions. Now, there is of course the necessity that your mind should have been developed enough to not get into conflicts, to have opposing thoughts, to have distracting thoughts, which is the preparation that you do up to the point where you reach to dhyana. That is the whole of the Yoga Sutra. It's not as if you can simply sit one day and say, I'm meditating. This is not going to work. So therefore, go through the rest of the teachings, starting with Yama, Niyama, Asana, read about the world and how we understand the world and what is the mind. So with this theoretical background, at least theoretically, if you have not understood it, you can understand it only through experience of samadhi. So you know, then fix your attention internally, like what we do is fix your attention in the heart, because we also know that it is the most important thing for us to do. Nothing is compared to that is as important, but normally it's only a hobby, dharana, dhyana. Okay, this will also be there, then I will get more power to do my business. If you seriously are interested in dhyana and samadhi and kaivalya, freedom, finally, then dhyana can happen only when you have understood this foundation. When you understood this foundation, try to do dharana on something that really, really interests you, in which your mind can dwell with ease for a length of time without moving away. The other thing, of course, is to fix your attention on the breath. But for that also, you should understand theoretically that it's very important to understand your breath, because your breath is connected to that which is the source of all your life. We don't give any attention to the breath. Normally, we take it for granted. We give attention to hunger, but not to the breath. So, understanding the sacredness of the breath, it is that which keeps us alive, and that when it goes, we don't exist. And that it must have a source which is not ordinary. Realizing that, then when you look at the breath itself inside, you look at it with a certain respect, with an understanding that it is a fountainhead of life. It is prana. It is that which primarily moves the entire universe in its own way. In fact, they say when Brahma breathes out, all creation comes. When you breathe in, it's all gone. Pralaya. It's the same with us. We are all in some way creators of this world with our minds. And when we breathe in, you're taking everything away into pralaya. Then there is only you and nothing else left. That is called being alone, kevalam. The construction of the word kaivalya comes from kevalam. There's only me. Not this me, not the ego me, but the original me, my essence. So, you can try to do your dharana in different ways, either internally. We call chakra dharana. That's why it's not called chakra dhyana. Because dhyana is not something which you can induce. You can only induce dharana. If you say I can cultivate meditation, it's not meditation. Believe me. You can say I will cultivate dharana, but you cannot say I can cultivate dhyana. Because dhyana has to be a spontaneous, automatic process when the dharana settles down and becomes lengthened. Because the moment I enter into the picture and try to tame the mind, there is no dhyana. Because there are two then, me and my mind, fighting with each other. Now, so enjoy your dharana. Forget about dhyana. Enjoy your dharana. Don't even think of dhyana, and then you are in dhyana. This is the secret. Put your attention completely on your dharana. Try to enjoy it. Build it up in ways where you really enjoy it. And then it could be music, it could be anything, even kirtan bhajan if you are fully into it. Or even service if you are fully into it is dharana. Care that you give to somebody is dharana. When that is serious and complete and you love doing it, then you are going slowly into dhyana. So, if you are meditating, for instance, doing chakra dharana, first thing to realize, it's so important to open these centers, because the vision grows, and when your vision grows and expands, you see the universe as it actually is and not as it is projected to us through our sense organs. So say I have to look into this window and see what it actually is. It must be beautiful. This must be different from all that my mind can cook up. It can be different from all that my sense organs can project. There must be something. Of what is one seeking? With this beautiful, beauteous understanding, if you sit down and do your chakradharana, saying these are the new instruments of perception that I'm opening up, because I'm not happy with the instruments of perception that already exist. I'm opening up new, and I'm going into new adventurous world. I want, when this thought occurs and then you're fixing your attention on the chakras, dhyana becomes automatic. There is no, the moment you say I'm going to bring, it's not possible. Complete dharana is dhyana. It has to stretch by itself. You can't do anything about it. So, this is what it is all about. It's very simple. Only this much. Very simple. Like pinch, one pinch of salt. See? When there is no two division, there is only one. Then all you see is a shunya. That shunya contains everything. You see? And in that, this is called the Akasha Mudra. There is no division between the meditator and the meditated. See? This is the meditator. And the index fingers, we don't point out to somebody like this. This is the object of meditation. This is the meditator. In that state of complete dharana, when the mind is still dhyana, then dharana becomes dhyana. Then there is no meditator and there is no meditated upon. There is only this shunya, this circle, which is going around. Nobody knows where a circle starts or where it ends. So the originator only knows. We don't know where it is. Once you draw the circle. That's the reality. And Vedanta represents it as Sat, Chit and Ananda. And this is what the great Dakshinamurti is showing, sitting under the banyan tree, one leg up, not speaking a word, just through his mudra. Like this, I think. I don't know. So, this is dhyana for you. So, even if you are meditating on Dakshinamurti, keep this in mind. It is not the image of Dakshinamurti that you are meditating upon, but the idea of oneness. That there is no this or that, there is only this. So, that happens. So, you have to follow the entire routine to come there to dhyana. You can't expect to do it one day suddenly. It's not possible, which is why people need to do practice. Not because you can practice dhyana, it's because you can perfect your dharana only through practice. When your dharana is perfected through practice, then dhyana follows. You cannot do anything about it. It follows. Please understand this. People don't understand this. Please understand this clearly. Then simply when you're sitting and looking out of your window, you might enter into the state called dhyana. Maybe doing nothing. So, this is dhyana. So I have described dhyana according to the Yoga Sutras, according to my understanding, and so on and so forth. There's nothing more to say. Let me put it this way, dhyana is a stretching forth of dharana. We can work on the dharana with complete interest, understanding that you want to be free of conditioning. So then the dharana stretches itself into dhyana and culminates in samadhi. I am not going to say a word about samadhi right now, except that samadhi is not when you die and somebody is buried and one store. Samadhi, no. From the point of view of Yoga Sutras, what samadhi is, that we can do in the next session. So now this dhyana is ended. So before we wind up and go, it would be a good idea to quietly sit and do your chakradharana or any kind of meditation or listening to music or chanting of Om in your mind for a few minutes and just keep Don't even think of stretching it into dhyana, just give it attention. Dharana is enough. And we'll sit for some time. And then, so I'm going to count till 3. Sit down. And then, when I think you should open your eyes, if you have not opened it already to see what I'm doing, then I'll say Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. So then you can open your eyes. Okay? All of you. So, 1. Follow your own procedure for dharana. Choose your technique. Chanting or meditating or chakra dharana, whatever you want to do. Guru Mantra. 1, 2, 3. Start. Keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes closed. Hari Om Tat Sat. Tat Sat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Enough for the day. Thank you.